Paper trail or nothing. Surviving opportunism in intimate spaces. Introduction. I stopped answering some people a long time ago. They were part of my daily life once. Names I could call, faces I could expect at the door, until the promises, their excuses, and the costs piled up until they became unlivable. This is not a score-settling post. It is a close look at a pattern I lived through. How a couple of people, acting like helpers, quietly turned access to shelter, cash, and favor culture into leverage. I am writing this to make sense of what happened, to give other survivors language for the same slow erosion, and to point at the cracks in the systems that should have stopped it. What happened? A plain timeline. I kept a running file of dates and short notes because memory wobbles when your life is in pieces. The essentials in plain terms. People moved in and out of my household. Bills stopped getting paid. Promises were mostly verbal and mostly broken. Help always cost money. I lost housing and possessions. Custody situations shifted in ways I still do not fully understand. My housing worker rarely showed up. Requests for assistance were deflected or delayed. I found myself asking for proof of things I used to take on faith. Those are the facts I can stand behind without drama. The rest is pattern and context, and that is what I want to dig into here. How opportunism works in intimate spaces. When you live with someone, or they control where you sleep, small imbalances become structural problems. Housing becomes leverage when your roof is effectively someone else's goodwill. It does not require a loud threat to be coercive. A missed day's rent, or a "you owe me" text is often enough because it preys on immediate need. Cash exchanges mutate over time. "I'll help if you pay me back later" can quietly become "I'll help if you pay me now." And casual IOUs solidify into unquestioned debts when there are no receipts or written agreements. Labels like roommate, partner, friend, and family ally get used interchangeably until responsibility disappears. And when something goes wrong, everyone points to the fuzzy boundary between we and you. People seeking access learn how to be likable, how to attend the right family events, how to call the right aunt. Those gestures build trust, and trust becomes currency that is later redeemed in favors rather than contracts. These tactics often begin as favors or helpful gestures, which is what makes them so dangerous. They look normal until they are not. The institutional gaps that let it continue. This is not only about a handful of people, it is about systems that were supposed to protect me and did not. When a housing worker who should stabilize your life is frequently absent, you are left to manage crises alone, and documenting missed appointments and asking for supervisors becomes necessary, because a missing worker equals a missing safety net. Social services and neighborly agreements often assume goodwill rather than paperwork, leaving survivors with nothing but memory and bruised trust. Rapid legal assistance is crucial when eviction and custody issues collide, but many services are stretched thin or have intake waitlists that are brutal in emergencies. Meanwhile, informal economies and stigma compound the problem. Neighbors whisper, agencies juggle caseloads, and people in crisis are often blamed rather than supported, which discourages many from seeking formal protection until it is too late. These gaps create the space opportunists exploit. They do not need to be sinister masterminds, only to operate within systems that move slowly enough for small windows of need to be abused. The personal toll, what the aftermath looks like. This kind of exploitation compounds harm over time. Materially, I lost places to live, possessions, and the stability that makes daily life manageable. Legally and custodially, paperwork, missed deadlines, and missing records complicate claims in ways that are hard to unwind. The deepest wound is emotional. Trust frays slowly, trust in people, in agencies, and in yourself, and you begin to require everything in writing because words have been weaponized against you. If this rings true for you, know that caution is a reasonable response. It is not paranoia, it is survival. Practical steps I learned, what actually helped me. You do not have to be an activist or a lawyer to protect yourself. I began by building a paper trail that made later steps possible. I started documenting everything with short, dated notes about conversations, missed visits, money exchanges, and text messages, and I kept them in one place. I began insisting on written agreements. If I was asked to cover expenses or enter a shared arrangement, I required it in writing, and if a worker promised help, I confirmed it by email and saved the reply. I escalated agency failures by filing complaints, asking for supervisors, requesting case notes, and insisting on reassignment when a worker was absent. I kept copies of complaint confirmations. I sought rapid legal intake where possible, because even a short consult can steer you away from costly missteps. I also assembled a small emergency kit that included ID, copies of important documents, trusted contact names, some cash if I could manage it, and a concise timeline of major events. These steps do not erase what happened, but they make future harm harder and accountability clearer. Closing thought and a call to readers. This article is part warning and part map. I write from hard-earned fatigue and hard-won clarity. People will always find ways to exploit weakness when systems are slow or absent, but exposing the pattern helps other people recognize it sooner. If you have been through something similar, take one immediate action today. Write one dated note about one event. That small record matters. If you work in housing, legal aid, or social services, ask your teams how short-term agreements and caseworker contact logs could become standard practice. If you are a neighbor, watch for subtler signs of coercion, repeated verbal-only demands, sudden control over someone's space, or patterns of help that always cost the recipient. I will keep writing about these patterns because silence protects them and transparency can blunt them. If you want templates for timelines, complaint letters, or demand for records emails, I can draft them in a format you can use tomorrow.